So, I want you to picture this. It's September 26, 1983.
Right.
You're sitting inside a secure Soviet bunker, just south of Moscow, and suddenly a computer screen starts flashing red.
Oh, man. The ultimate nightmare scenario.
Literally, the alarm sirens are blaring, and the system is reporting, with absolute maximum certainty, that 5 American intercontinental ballistic missiles have just launched, and they're flying directly toward the Soviet Union.
Right.
Now, in our actual timeline, the duty officer who was sitting in that bunker, a guy named Stanislav Petrov, he looks at this data and he just guesses it's a glitch.
Which is, frankly, unbelievable under that kind of pressure.
Seriously. He chose to disobey his own strict protocol. He just did nothing. And honestly, you and I are only here today talking about this because of him.
Yeah, that's completely true.
But for today's deep dive, we are looking at a stack of sources that explore a really terrifying alternate history scenario, like a comprehensive breakdown of what would have happened if a different officer had been sitting in that chair.
Right, somebody who just followed their training to the letter.
Exactly, somebody who just played by the rules.
And, the mission of our deep dive today, it isn't just to look at the explosions or the sheer destructive power of a nuclear exchange.
Right.
We really want to trace the exact cascading domino effect that leads to the total collapse of modern civilization. Because when you examine the mechanics of how these systems were built, you realize that the peace of the early 1980s was just incredibly fragile.
Hanging by a thread, really.
Absolutely. The geopolitical landscape back then was completely dominated by the US and NATO on one side, and the Soviet Union and Warsaw Pact on the other.
Yeah.
And between them, they possessed tens of thousands of nuclear warheads. And all of this was wired to an incredibly complex, fast-acting nervous system of, early warning satellites and radar networks.
And to really understand the paranoia of that specific moment, late 1983, you have to look at the context surrounding.
Oh, for sure. The tension was off the charts.
Right. NATO is running these massive, highly realistic military exercises at the time, exercises that look completely indistinguishable from the buildup to an actual invasion.
Yeah, from the Soviet perspective, it looked like the real thing.
Exactly. And both sides are deploying these new, much faster missiles to Europe that cut flight times down to, mere minutes. The whole atmosphere is just soaked in mistrust.
It was a powder keg.
So the Soviet satellite system that triggered this specific alarm in '83, it was known as OCO. And it was designed to detect the infrared signatures of missile exhaust plumes as they left their silos in the U.S.
Right.
But in reality, the satellite had just been blinded by this super rare alignment of sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds.
Which, unfortunately, the computer system interpreted as the massive thermal bloom of a Minuteman missile launch.
Yeah.
But in the scenario our sources outlined today, the duty officer, he trusts the multi-million-dollar early warning system over his own gut intuition.
Which, you can't really blame him for, right? It's his job.
Exactly. So he picks up the phone, confirms the incoming strike, and the alert goes straight to the Kremlin.
Wow.
And the Soviet leadership, who are already primed by months of paranoia to believe a preemptive strike is inevitable. They just received confirmation that the war has begun.
And there's no time to second guess it.
No, none at all. The protocol for this exact situation is based on the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. But functionally, in that moment, it means launch on warning.
Launch on warning, man.
Yeah. The order is given to fire the entire Soviet arsenal before American missiles can land and destroy their silos.
And the timeline outlined in the sources from the moment that order is given is genuinely difficult to process. The entire chain of events unfolds in a 12 to 20-minute window.
Yeah, it's horrifyingly fast.
We are literally talking about the end of human civilization happening faster than it takes to, get a pizza delivered to your house.
The physics of a ballistic missile trajectory is essentially dictate that speed.
Right, because they go into space, basically.
Yeah, exactly. An ICBM takes roughly 25 to 30 minutes to travel from a silo in, say, the American Midwest to a target in Russia, or vice versa.
Okay.
But by the time the early warning satellites actually detect the launch and the computers verify the trajectory, several minutes have already burned away.
So the clock is already ticking down.
Right. So the Soviet missiles leave their silos, their submarines hiding out in the Atlantic and Pacific launch their payloads, and the long-range bombers scramble.
All at once.
All at once. And almost instantly, American defense systems like the massive NORAD radars, they just light up with hundreds of incoming contacts.
Which leaves the President of the United States with practically zero time to react. There is no time to get the Soviet premier on a hotline to talk it out.
None. The missiles were already up in the upper atmosphere, traveling at thousands of miles per hour.
So, faced with the confirmed imminent destruction of the country, the president just authorizes the massive retaliatory strike. Over 1,000 American nuclear warheads launch.
Yep. And it doesn't stop there, because Britain and France see this and activate their own emergency protocols, and they fire their arsenals too.
And to me, the real psychological terror of this whole mechanism is that human diplomacy is entirely removed from the equation.
Totally.
Like, the systems were specifically designed to be too fast for politics. World War III is decided, executed, and, locked into the laws of physics in under 20 minutes.
I always tell people, just think about your average morning routine, right?
Yeah.
By the time you shower, get dressed, and walk out the door, the geopolitical structure of the entire Earth has been permanently erased.
That is just wow. And according to the sources, the geography of that erasure starts immediately in Europe.
Yes.
Because of the shorter distances there and the massive concentration of military forces, Europe basically becomes the immediate ground zero.
Right. The moment those strategic missiles are detected, the conventional forces stationed right along the border of East and West Germany just violently collide.
So you have tens of thousands of tanks pouring through the Fulda Gap, skies filled with thousands of aircraft, and chemical weapons being deployed against airfields and supply lines.
It's a meat grinder. And the conventional warfare is incredibly brutal. But the sources really emphasize that it only lasts for a matter of hours before the nuclear threshold is crossed right there on the battlefield.
Wait, okay, hold on. I have to challenge that timeline a little bit.
Sure.
If both Washington and Moscow know that crossing the nuclear threshold means total civilization-ending annihilation, wouldn't they move heaven and earth to keep the fighting strictly conventional?
You think so?
Right. Like, it seems entirely irrational to drop a nuke just because a tank division is losing a little ground. The instinct for human survival should override the military objective, shouldn't it?
Well, the assumption that both sides would act rationally just goes completely out the window when you examine the actual military doctrine of the 1980s.
Okay, how so?
So, NATO forces were vastly outnumbered by Soviet and Warsaw Pact tanks and infantry, right? The Western strategy at the time was known as flexible response, and it explicitly relied on the use of tactical nuclear weapons as equalizers.
Oh, wow, so it was baked into the plan.
Exactly. If Soviet armor was breaking through the lines and threatening to overrun Western Europe, NATO commanders were actually pre-authorized to use small battlefield nukes to just halt the advance.
But the fatal flaw in that logic is the escalation ladder.
Bingo.
It's like a bar fight where one guy pulls a knife just to scare off a bigger opponent.
That is exactly the dynamic. The bigger opponent doesn't back down, he pulls a gun.
Right, and then the first guy's friends pull out assault rifles.
Yeah. The very moment a NATO commander uses, say, a low-yield nuclear artillery shell to destroy a Soviet tank column, the Soviet commander retaliates with a larger weapon against the NATO airbase that provided air cover for that sector.
And then NATO strikes the regional Soviet command center.
Exactly. Within a span of maybe 3 or 4 hours, these localized tactical strikes escalate all the way up the chain of command. Once cities are being hit with medium-range bombers, the strategic ICBMs, those intercontinental city killers we talked about, they begin detonating.
And the sheer destructive capacity of those weapons, it completely dwarfs what we usually think of when we hear the word nuclear.
Oh, completely.
I mean, these aren't the single bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A single 1980s ICBM carries multiple independent warheads.
Right, MIRVs.
Yeah, and each one of those is capable of yielding hundreds of kilotons or even megatons of explosive power. They are literally designed to systematically erase major population and industrial centers.
Yeah, the casualty list detailed in the documents, it reads like a map of the modern world just being rolled up and burned.
Warsaw, Berlin, Prague, Paris, London, New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, Minsk, all of them.
Just gone.
They all vanish beneath multiple overlapping mushroom clouds in a single afternoon.
And the destruction doesn't stay confined to just the primary belligerents either.
Right, because of the global panic.
Yes, the sources highlight this really chilling secondary effect. This localized myth understanding instantly drags the entire planet into the fire.
Because everyone else is watching this happen.
Exactly. China, for instance, sees the two massive superpowers completely emptying their arsenals, fearing that the radioactive fallout will cripple them, or that a stray volley is headed for Beijing, or even that an invasion will follow. The Chinese military launches its own nuclear deterrent.
So the paranoia literally becomes a contagion.
it does.
India sees China mobilizing and preparing for war, so New Delhi scrambles its forces.
Right.
And then Pakistan detects the Indian mobilization and immediately goes to maximum alert, preparing its own strikes.
And Israel sees the global command structure collapsing entirely and activates its fail-safe defense protocols.
It's like every nation with the capability to destroy its neighbor just assumes they are about to be destroyed.
And so they fire. Now, the missiles stop falling within hours, but the real catastrophe for the survivors is that the moment the detonations end, the modern era ends with them.
Yeah, because those high-altitude blasts don't just destroy buildings, they fundamentally break the electromagnetic spectrum.
They really do.
We need to dive into the physics of this, because the immediate aftermath isn't just about navigating physical rubble.
Right.
Say you're an average citizen and you somehow survive the blast by making it to a basement or a deep subway tunnel. You emerge into a world that has suffered a total infrastructure blackout.
Yeah, the sources describe humanity collectively losing its nervous system overnight.
And the mechanism behind that is the EMP, right?
Yeah.
The electromagnetic pulse.
Exactly. When a nuclear weapon detonates really high in the atmosphere, the gamma radiation strips electrons from air molecules.
Okay.
This creates a massive continent-wide surge of electromagnetic energy that just courses through anything conductive.
So like power lines.
Every unshielded wire, every transformer, every single power line acts like a giant antenna capturing this energy. The surge fries the delicate microchips in servers, melts the electrical grids, and permanently destroys the nascent internet and all digital communications.
So the global economy, the stock markets, digital banking, international air travel networks, it literally all ceases to exist in a microsecond.
Gone.
And you can't just reboot the system if the microprocessors are physically melted and the power plants are, glowing radioactively.
No, there's no turning it off and on again.
And the detail from the source material that really stops you in your tracks, it's the phrase, space falls silent.
Oh yeah, the implications of that phrase are just staggering.
Let's talk about that.
So the EMP blasts fry the unshielded circuitry of practically all the satellites in low Earth orbit.
Just instantly bricked.
Yes. And simultaneously, the massive mission control centers and uplink stations on the ground are vaporized.
So anyone up there?
Any astronauts aboard space stations suddenly lose all communication with Earth. They're just left drifting in the dark.
That is terrifying.
Global navigation collapses. Weather forecasting ends. Humanity's presence in space is just snuffed out instantly.
And the tragedy for the survivors on the ground is how entirely dependent our society had become on that invisible digital web.
Oh, completely.
Like if a city burned in the 18th century, the fundamental technologies for survival were still physical, right? Blacksmithing, agriculture, carpentry.
Yeah, you could rebuild with your hands.
But by the late 20th century, we had essentially outsourced our collective memory to servers. When the grid fails permanently, the accumulated scientific and logistical knowledge of the era is locked inside melted hard drives.
Yep.
You might have survivors who know how to code software, but they have absolutely no idea how to forge a plow or purify water without municipal pressure or synthesize basic antibiotics.
Exactly. And those initial blasts and the sudden loss of technology are terrifying. But the sources point out that the long-term lethality actually comes from what those detonations do to the cities themselves.
Right, because you have thousands of urban centers, oil refineries, and forests just burning simultaneously.
Which acts as this massive engine for the next phase of the collapse.
And the sources make a claim here that seems kind of counterintuitive at first. They state that within 2 years of the war, famine kills vastly more people than the bombs themselves.
Yeah, it's a staggering statistic.
But wait, how does a war fought primarily in the northern hemisphere cause mass starvation in countries down in the southern hemisphere that were never even targeted?
Well, the mechanism here is driven by the density of fuel in modern cities.
Okay.
When a modern city is hit by a nuclear weapon, you are igniting millions of tons of plastics, asphalt, synthetic rubber, and wood all at once.
It's just a giant bonfire of artificial fuel?
Exactly. And these individual fires merge into massive firestorms. The heat is so intense that it actually creates its own weather system, sucking in oxygen and creating hurricane-force winds of flame.
Wow.
And that pumps millions of tons of dense black soot straight up into the stratosphere.
And the stratosphere is above the normal weather systems, right? Meaning there is no rain up there to wash the soot back down.
Precisely. The high-altitude jet streams catch that soot and distribute it across the entire globe, wrapping the planet in a dark, impenetrable shield.
The nuclear winter.
This is the onset of nuclear winter. When you block out the sunlight, global temperatures plummet drastically. You experience freezing temperatures in the middle of summer.
So the botany of the planet simply stops functioning.
Thanks.
Without sufficient sunlight, photosynthesis halts. The global growing seasons disappear overnight. Crops fail across the entire world simultaneously.
It's complete ecosystem collapse.
So a country in South America or Africa that wasn't involved in the war at all suddenly finds that its crops just won't mature.
Right.
And because the digital supply chains and shipping networks we discussed earlier have completely vanished, they can't import food from anywhere else. The entire global food web collapses.
Even the oceans aren't safe. The oceans cool, the lack of sunlight kills the phytoplankton, and the fish populations just plummet.
So you have a global famine.
A global famine. But compounding the starvation is the total breakdown of public health infrastructure.
Yeah, because the loss of water pressure isn't just an inconvenience. It means the end of modern sanitation.
Right, the sewers back up.
Clean drinking water becomes the rarest commodity on Earth. Survivors are drinking from contaminated rivers and rain catchments, which leads to the immediate return of waterborne diseases like cholera and dysentery.
And furthermore, the survivors are dealing with widespread radiation exposure from the fallout.
Right.
Even non-lethal doses of radiation cause severe damage to the bone marrow, which dramatically reduces the body's ability to produce white blood cells.
Oh, so the human immune system is essentially dismantled.
Especially in children.
Man. So a minor cut from scavenging in the rubble, something you would, just clean and put a bandage on today, that becomes a lethal infection.
Exactly. Diseases that humanity had spent centuries eradicating return with an absolute vengeance.
The synergy of these disasters is what drives the death toll so unbelievably high. Starvation weakens the physical body, radiation destroys the immune system, and the lack of sanitation introduces ancient diseases into this super vulnerable population.
The human cost just becomes difficult to fully comprehend.
What are the numbers the sources give?
They estimate over 1 billion people dead in the immediate aftermath in the first year.
1 billion.
But as the nuclear winter, famine, and systemic disease really take hold, that number climbs to over 5 billion.
5 billion people.
Yeah. It is a catastrophic artificial pruning of the human race.
And the documents don't just stop at the immediate years following the war. They actually project the scenario out half a century later,
Wow.
50 years after the exchange.
Right.
And the world they describe is essentially a new dark age.
It really is.
The survivors are living in these scattered, isolated agrarian communities. The primary sources of energy are just wind and river power.
We're back to the Middle Ages, basically.
Yeah. The artifacts of our current world, laptops, smartphones, jet engines, they are completely useless. They are literal museum pieces to a generation of children who view the 20th century as this, mythological era of magic.
And I think the deepest tragedy here is the profound loss of human culture.
Yeah.
We aren't just talking about losing conveniences, We're talking about the erasure of entire languages, the loss of thousands of years of recorded history, and the complete regression of scientific understanding.
Human progress is set back by centuries.
Exactly. The global currency is no longer fiat money or gold. The only things of actual value are food, basic medicine, and clean water.
And nature rapidly steps into the void left by human industry. The sources describe forests and vegetation slowly reclaiming the radioactive, abandoned skeletons of the cities.
Yeah, wildlife returns in abundance, but it evolves in these completely isolated ecosystems, heavily influenced by the lingering radiation.
So the defining paradigm of this new era is that the ambition of humanity has shrunk.
Right.
The greatest achievement is no longer exploring the stars, curing complex diseases, or building global networks. The ultimate achievement is simply biological survival.
Finding enough calories to make it through the winter.
Exactly. And when you trace this entire timeline back to its origin, the fragility of our reality becomes glaringly obvious.
It really does.
We started with a single automated error on a radar screen. And because we imagined one officer unquestioningly verifying that error, we watched a cascade unfold over just 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
That 20-minute window resulted in the total loss of the modern world, the deaths of billions of people, and the erasure of centuries of human progress.
But the source leaves us with a really profound insight regarding how we actually made it through the 1980s in reality.
Yeah, because we did survive.
Right. Humanity didn't survive the Cold War because we possessed superior military strategy or because one side won in a traditional sense.
Because the weapons were too powerful for a victory condition to even exist.
Exactly. We survived because, at critical, terrifying moments, a handful of individuals, radar operators, submarine captains, duty officers like Stanislav Petrov, they refused to panic.
They stay human.
They looked at the highly advanced systems telling them the world was ending, and they chose to exercise human restraint. The systems were designed for annihilation, but the human element jammed the gears.
The mountain of modern civilization that we think we are standing on, it isn't made of solid rock. It is entirely held up by human judgment, and it can collapse the exact moment that judgment fails.
Yeah, that's incredibly well said.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder today, building on the mechanics of the collapse we just explored.
Let's hear it.
We discussed at length how all digital knowledge was permanently lost because the EMPs melted the servers and the power grids went down permanently.
Right.
Take a look around your home right now. If a catastrophic event instantly erased all digital storage, cloud networks, and the internet today, what physical printed books do you actually own that would help rebuild a community?
That's a great question.
What practical non-digital skills do you possess right now that would be valuable in a world without electricity? It's sobering to realize how much of your own memory, your accumulated knowledge, and your ability to navigate the world is entirely dependent on an invisible digital web. A web that could vanish before your morning commute is over.
Yeah, that really puts it in perspective.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, question the stability of the ground beneath your feet, and keep seeking out new perspectives.